أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم صلى الله تعالى على حبيبه محمد وآله وسلم. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to our segment on Surah Al-Hijar. Inshallah, today we will cover the 5th ruku of the surah, verses 61 to 79. May Allah grant us the ability to understand the true meanings of the Quran by the grace of His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ameen. With this dua, let's begin the 5th ruku of Surah Al-Hijar. Verses 61 and 62. Then when came to the family of Lut, the messengers, he said, "Indeed, you are people unknown." The narrative continues from the previous ruku. After leaving Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, the messengers continued to Prophet Lut alayhi salam to inform him about the future of his family and his nation. As stated here, the messengers were strangers to him, as he had never seen them before. This incident is also mentioned in Surah Al-Ankabut in verse 33 for further reading. Let's go on to verses 63 and 64. They said, "Nay, we have come to you with what they were disputing, and we have come to you with reality, and indeed we are truthful." The messengers explained to Prophet Lut alayhi salam that they knew about the dispute that was going on between him and the people of his nation, that his people did not want to change their ways according to the message he was sent to give them from Allah. They explained that they came with the truth, so he should believe them and do as they say. The deeds of the nation of Prophet Lut alayhi salam are described in Surah Al-Araf in verses 80 to 81 for further reading. Let's go on to verses 65 and 66. So set out with your family in a portion of the night, and follow behind them, and not let look back among you anyone, and continue where you are ordered. And we conveyed to him that matter. The root of those would be cut off by early morning. As stated, Prophet Lut alayhi salam was ordered to leave the city over the night with his family so they could all be saved, because the city was to be destroyed the next day. This is mentioned in Surah Ash-Shu'ara, verses 170 to 172 as well, for further reading. From these verses, we can understand that these messengers who came first to Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam and then to Prophet Lut alayhi salam with information to convey had the knowledge of the book, and they were sent by Allah. They had a responsibility to inform both of them and safely remove Prophet Lut alayhi salam and his family, who were the obedient servants of Allah, from the corruptness that surrounded them. Then the disobedient inhabitants can all be destroyed. Let's go on to verses 67 to 69. And came those of the city rejoicing. He said, "Indeed, these are my guests, so do not shame me, and be mindful of Allah, and do not disgrace me." When the people of the city found out about the messengers that had come to visit Prophet Lut alayhi salam, they were overjoyed and came rushing to Prophet Lut alayhi salam for them. Knowing their tendencies, that they were prone to commit obscenity openly, he warned them to be mindful and not embarrass him in front of his guests. Let's go on to verses 70 to 72. They said, "Have we not forbid you from the worlds?" He said, "These are my daughters, if you would be doers. By your life, indeed, they were in their intoxication wandering blindly." As stated previously, the nation of Prophet Lut alayhi salam practiced homosexuality amongst other corrupt behaviors. When he told them to refrain themselves, they argued that they had never stopped him from anybody, so why should he? Prophet Lut alayhi salam then presented his daughters to them to take to satisfy their urge. However, their minds were so numb from their lust, they could not see their own wrongdoing. This incident is also mentioned in Surah Al-Hud, verse 78, for further reading. The acts of these people are highlighted in Surah Ash-Shura, verses 165 to 166, that you can also read further. Let's go on to verses 73 and 74. So seized them the shriek at sunrise, and we made its highest part its lowest, and we showered upon them stones of hard clay. As stated here, the nation of Prophet Lut was destroyed in a most catastrophic way. This is also mentioned in Surah Ash-Shura, verse 173, for further reading, and also in Surah Hud, in verse 82. Let's go on to verses 75 to 77. Indeed, in that are signs for those who discern, and indeed they are on a road established. Indeed, in that are signs for the believers. We are reminded in these verses that the narratives in the Quran about the past nations are there for us to learn from. The story of Prophet Lut is highlighted again in this surah, from which those who believe and act upon Allah's commands can recognize the signs from it and increase their understanding of the reality in them. It's important to reflect upon these verses and see if we are able to recognize their signs in our lives today. History repeats itself, so we need to be mindful of these stories and see if the actions of those from the past are being repeated by us today. Allah's laws also don't change, so we should understand then that those who act in the same way as those mentioned in the Quran will also have to face similar consequences. Let's go on to verses 78 and 79. And the companions of the thicket were wrongdoers. So we took retribution from them, and indeed they both are on a highway clear. We see the mention of Ayyka, the companions of the thicket. They are mentioned 4 times in the Quran. After this surah, we see their mention in Surah Ash-Shura, Surah Sad, Surah Qaf, where they are described as wrongdoers and those who rejected the messengers. Companions of the thicket refers to those who are entangled in their own ideas, interests, and desires, creating imbalances within themselves and their surroundings. Their minds are dense, like a thicket, so they reject Allah's laws and commands, which leads them to their own destruction. The ruins of the destroyed settlements of the people of Prophet Lut and the companions of the thicket are still present for all to see even today and reflect upon. This concludes the 5th Ruku of Surah Al-Hijar. Let's briefly go over what we discussed. Prophet Lut was informed by messengers of Allah that his city and its people would be destroyed due to their wrongdoings and unlawful acts, while he would be saved along with his family, except for his wife. The people of Prophet Lut along with the companions of the thicket, Ashabu al-Ayyka, were both destroyed due to their wrongdoings and rejecting the messengers who were sent to them to change their ways and obey Allah's commands. Their ruins are still present today for all to see and reflect upon. May Allah grant us the ability to understand the Holy Quran and its true meanings, in light of the life and guidance of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ameen. Thank you for joining us for this segment. Until next time. Sadaqallahul Aliyul Azim. Allah speaks the truth, the exalted, the great. Sallallahu ta'ala ala habibihi Muhammadiyun wa alihi wasallam.